Good afternoon and welcome to the Joint Operational Briefing. To open it up, I welcome to the podium the Miami-Dade County Mayor, Daniela Levin Cava.
Hello everyone, we're now here on day 16. Many of you have been with us since day one. Thank you. Our search and recovery team continued their efforts throughout the night and today, as always, and as we have stressed, this recovery is moving forward with great urgency as we work 24 hours a day on the pile to recover victims and bring closure to all of the families still waiting. We want to bring them news as quickly as we possibly can. We have now removed over 13 million pounds of concrete and debris. 60 trucks a day are working. And since our last briefing, our first responders have uncovered an additional 18 victims. Excuse me, I stand corrected. We have now uncovered an additional 14 victims of this tragedy. This brings the total number of confirmed fatalities to 78. This is a staggering and heartbreaking number that affects all of us very, very deeply. Please, please continue to keep all of the families in your prayers and in your hearts. Of the 78 confirmed victims, 47 have been identified and next of kin notified. 47. 200 people are accounted for, with 62 people potentially still unaccounted for. And our detectives continue to audit the list as they've done, verifying every single report that we receive and working to identify those who may have been recovered as quickly as possible so we can get accurate information. Today, the Broward Medical Examiner's Office has come on site to assist us with personnel. The Miami-Dade Medical Examiner is doing everything. They're fully staffed and they're working as fast as they can, but it is very, very valuable and critical that we provide some relief to those men and women working in the medical examiner's office doing this vital work. And so we're very grateful to the support from Broward County to help us allow our teams to rotate more frequently. All those who have passed, all 78, are leaving behind loved ones. They're leaving behind devastated families. The magnitude of this tragedy is growing each and every day. It's an aching hole in the center of this close-knit family here in Surfside, a beautiful, small, close-knit community. We know that the hard work of beginning to rebuild is just beginning for so many of these families, and we are committed to staying with them every step of the process, every step. We will not leave these families. We put the families at the center of every single decision that we make since day one. We'll continue to do everything in our power to provide all the relief and all the support that they need. Those who've been affected, the families waiting and grieving, and the survivors. We're providing wraparound social services at our Family Assistance Center. That includes grief, psychological counseling, spiritual counseling, financial assistance, lodging, and any other form of assistance. And I also want to highlight that the State Department of Financial Services has a table at this Family Assistance Center for insurance questions, which many of our families have, and so they are there as well to assist. Also, as we discussed yesterday, the mental health and well-being of our first responders is also a key concern for all of us, and it is an urgent priority. Since the morning of day one, just hours after the collapse, our critical incident stress management team was on site, and we have rapidly added to that team with additional state and national resources in the following days. We also have peer support personnel assigned 24 hours a day at our fire stations. So there is support for all of our men and women working this site. We know that there will be long-term impacts as well for those on the front lines following this tragedy, and our teams will continue to provide support to them as well. They have given so much of themselves in the past 2 weeks, and we know in the months and years ahead they will continue as well to experience impacts from what they've seen and done. I also want to thank the Small Business Administration for their incredibly hard work and their partnership in providing support to the local businesses and families that have had an impact from this tragedy. And through their outreach, there have already been 68 applications received, including 40 from the business community. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, has made very significant progress in tagging and transporting pieces of forensic evidence from the pile. They've now collected over 200 pieces of evidence, and they recently deployed a scientist from the Physics Measurement Lab in Washington to assist with analysis. So please join me in continuing to pray for the families, those who have lost, those teams who haven't stopped since day one. Buenos días, aquí estamos en el día 16. Los equipos ahora han eliminado más de 13 millones de libras de concreto y escombros. Desde nuestra última sesión, nuestros primeros en responder han descubierto a otras 14 víctimas de esta tragedia. El número total de muertes confirmado es 78. Por favor, mantengan a todas las familias en sus corazones y oraciones. De las 78 víctimas confirmadas, 47 han sido identificadas y sus familiares notificados. Todos estos 78 dejan atrás a seres queridos y familias devastadas. La magnitud de esta tragedia crece cada día y es un agujero doloroso en el centro de esta hermosa y unida comunidad de Surfside. Sabemos que el trabajo de comenzar a reconstruir apenas está comenzando para muchas de estas familias y estamos comprometidos a estar aquí con ellos en cada paso de este proceso hasta el futuro. También sabemos que habrá impactos a largo plazo de aquellos en la línea luego de esta tragedia, y nuestros equipos continuarán brindando apoyo a los hombres y mujeres que han dado tanto de sí mismos en las próximas semanas, meses y años. Continúe orando por las familias, por aquellos que hemos perdido y por los equipos que no se han detenido desde el primer día. Gracias a todos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Surfside Mayor Charles Burkett.
Good morning, everyone. I spent a good amount of time this morning at the collapse site and want to report that the pile that originally was approximately 4 or 5 stories is now almost at ground level. So the progress that our search and rescue teams are making is really incredible. And as a matter of fact, in some areas, I believe it's below ground level in areas where it was almost 4 or 5 stories tall. On another note, I had been asked often by the family members about whether we are finding personal items in the rubble and how those personal items are being addressed. I made it a point last night, to spend a good amount of time with the professionals who are accepting, identifying, labeling, categorizing, and storing all of the family's valuables, personal items, keepsakes, and other family treasures that have been found at the collapse site. They are using GPS technology to place the items found near the family's units so that we have a better idea to whom those items may belong. Those items are being guarded 24 hours a day. Everything you can imagine has been recovered and processed. This process will continue until every bit of debris is gone through. We owe a duty to the families, and I'm proud of the Dade County team within the police department who is undertaking this very, very important work. It means a lot to the families, and I'm glad it's being done like it's being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And our Creole translator, Lionel Letterbourg.
Mesdames, Messieurs, bonjour. Jeudi encore, nous retournons. Ça fait nos 16e jour depuis nous retourner sur place. Et après des aslas, nous continuons à travailler 7 jours sur 7, 24 heures sur 24. Et gagner 13 millions de tonnes de débris qui déjà sortis sur ce site-là. Et depuis la dernière fois nous parlons, il y a 14 cas de décès que nous arrivons joindre qui est additionnel. Ça portait le nombre de décès à 78, 47 déjà identifiés, 200 personnes que nous déjà connaissons qui l'a toujours, et monde qui nous pouvons retrouver environ 62. L'équipe de recherche nous continue à travailler pour assurer que 62, ça effectivement, c'est des gens qui étaient dans le building là dans le moment où ils tombent. Nous continuons à demander pour tout le monde continuer à prier pour l'équipe noire et puis prier pour la famille qui a fait face à un moment difficile ça. Et Broward County, il y a un médecin législatif avec toute l'équipe qui vient sur place, qui a travaillé avec l'équipe noire, qui fait que nous renforçons l'équipe là, nous avons plus de travail et nous sommes capables de travailler plus vite. Et nous avons toute l'équipe nous là qui toujours continue à supporter nous, au logement, au assistance financière, au conseil sur le plan spirituel et à tous les niveaux, de sorte que nous sommes capables de traverser ces moments difficiles ça. Pour le moment, nous avons dit que tout effort nous concentré sur aider les familles, parce que famille c'est déjà point central effort que nous avons mis en œuvre pour le moment. Nous avons fait tout ça capable pour nous capables d'apporter à la fois support et encouragement et soulagement à eux-mêmes. Merci à vous.
Thank you, Mr. Laribo. And we're going to start the questions and answers. And as usual, customary, we're going to go ahead and raise our hand. Wait, till you're called upon. And we have Miami-Dade Fire Chief here, Alan Kaminsky, as well, and Miami-Dade Police Department Director, Freddie Ramirez. We'll start with the gentleman here in the corner.
Chief Kaminsky, we've heard and you've talked about the importance of emotional support for the people working the pile. I know the clergy's been there, chaplain's been there. Do they also pick each other up? Can you describe how they're working with each other to support each other as they work?
Yes, our mental health is critical. You know, obviously the stress that we're encountering, the hours, the efforts, you know, that all the firefighters, first responders are putting in, you know, it's essential. And part of that is communicating, talking. And yes, one of the most uplifting is communicating amongst each other and just, you know, discussing situations, things they're encountering. You know, it's important for us to be open and talk, not to keep things in. You know, as well as having all our different staff and personnel and professionals as well to assist. But definitely the interaction amongst each other is critical as well.
We're going to go here and then follow it up to you, sir.
Chief Kaminsky, this question is also for you. I'm hearing reports that a frontline worker was injured from debris or machinery. Can you confirm that over the past 24 hours?
Yes, over the past 24 hours, we did have 2 individuals you know, that were injured. One was cardiac in nature and was transported to the hospital and is in stable condition. The other individual was one of the task force members, which was received a laceration, did require some sutures, but is stable and doing as well, all right as well.
Sir.
Chief, this is also for you. I know that there's been a lot of talk about folks being found in bed, but I'm wondering if you might be able to describe where the latest people were found, and also if there's any indication that there were people perhaps in stairwells or trying to get to an elevator to sort of, you know, show what the last moments might have been for these people's lives.
Well, we're definitely located victims all throughout the rubble pile. We do focus because of the time frame, you know, what occurred in regards to the dispatch, how we arrived, individuals possibly exiting through stairwells. So that's always our primary focus. So obviously in this type of collapse, it's been extremely difficult just locating that stairwell, that area where we, you know, would hopefully find survivors at that time, and now where we're continuing searching, you know, in a recovery method, as well as bedrooms, you know, due to that time frame when we're doing our search, you know, that's kind of the process. So when we feel we locate an area in that particular apartment or whichever, you know, based on the schematics, based on the floor plan, that's how we would, do our search in regards to trying to locate the bedroom for the greatest,
So the last
possible
14
location.
people, can you elaborate a little bit more about where you might have found them?
I couldn't be specific where they were located. Obviously we're communicating with the family in different aspects as well. But those are just key aspects that we look for when we're going throughout the
Just
search.
trying to follow up, around what floor level do you think these folks were found?
Well, as I mentioned, the rubble pile is still at all different levels. So I know we're in certain areas as low as floor 2, and we're still in certain areas at floor 5. So somewhere in that particular.
Ana, what's up?
Yes, Erica, in Spanish, if you could explain the process that you're in now, because we have seen heavy machinery, maquinaria pesada, and backhoes, excavadoras, and some people worry about what that means for any possible remains. If you could explain how that, just basically, obviously for nature, how that works.
Bueno, claro que sí, en este momento estamos utilizando esta maquinaria pesada y también maquinaria liviana para surtir estos escombros que quedan. Lo que estamos usando la maquinaria pesada con mucha precisión, sabemos en qué áreas estamos buscando y en qué áreas debemos utilizar maquinaria pesada. Los escombros que están en este momento los han dividido en varias partes y la maquinaria pesada se está utilizando especialmente en esas partes donde sabemos que tal vez ya no hay víctimas.
This is for the police director. I know the fire chief spoke about injuries. We had heard also a Miami-Dade officer potentially hit by machinery. Could you speak to that? And also, Mayor, if you could clarify, we have some family members asking us, how will we be notified? What is the process? Just trying to prepare, if you could speak to that after.
Absolutely, yes. Unfortunately, one of our officers got his foot run over on one of the traffic posts. He was transported to the hospital. I spoke to him yesterday right after it happened. I spoke to him last night and his wife. They're in good spirits. He's just frustrated that he can't be here to contribute, but we have all the support behind him, and I asked the community as well to pray for him and his family. He's going to be okay, but everybody here is working very hard.
And that was machinery?
No, it was a vehicle. It was a truck.
You answer about how families are.
Oh, absolutely. And in terms of your second question, we have a very strong systematic approach in which we notify the families. Our detectives, our homicide detectives, notify the families in person. That's why I call them the messengers. The moment we get an ID, they rush right away because those families have been waiting for quite some time, and we take very seriously bringing them closure. And we tell them, also with a victim advocate that we have as well. We talk about the wellness. We have victim advocates that are there and support services that help the family comfort, plus all the work that's been put in by the fire department, the family police. I mean, this has been a long process of coping and coming together, and it's just not that one moment. It's the whole process, which has been amazing.
También, por favor, eso mismo, por favor. ¿Cómo es el proceso de notificar a las familias que tanto han estado esperando?
Sí, lo hacemos muy delicado y con honor. Lo que pasa es cuando los detectives cogen la información, van directo a la familia y se lo dice. Y ahí también tenemos psicólogos y clinicians que ayudan con ese proceso, pero todo ese trabajo ya empezó cuando esto pasó. Eso porque tenemos los reuniones con la familia. Estamos preparando para estos momentos. Estamos procesando esto como una familia. Ya tenemos conexión con esta familia y tú sabes, es un proceso muy importante, muy delicado, y la alcaldesa se puso mucho esfuerzo en teniendo conexión con la familia y lo estamos haciendo juntos y estamos sufriendo juntos.
¿Cómo están manejando la lista de los potencialmente desaparecidos?
¿Cómo es?
Los que no saben dónde potencialmente desaparecidos.
Sí, tenemos como 55 documentados con casos que no sabemos dónde están. Entonces hay otro número, que es casi 20, que no sabemos si estaban ahí, si son números incorrectos o que piensan que estaban ahí pero no estaban o han fallecido en el pasado. Esos números todavía estamos trabajando, pero no podemos dar un número total porque la familia queremos estar seguros. Y también tenemos el proceso de identificar a los que han fallecido también. Cuando empezamos a identificarlo, esos números empiezan a cambiar. Es muy delicado y siempre hacemos todo pensando en la familia.
Last two questions USA Today, followed by you.
Thank you. This one is from Mayor Lee Pava. I understand that
think from the very beginning, there was concern about the stability of that front tower. So the engineers were investigating and considering every option. And at that time, we did not know of the rapid implosion method. And so it was considered that it would take, you heard it, weeks to accomplish. So we continued our search while we also continued exploring the demolition. When we did not learn of this rapid demolition method until right after I announced here at a press event that it was going to take weeks. So the engineers had been meeting right after that with the company that was capable of doing this, and when they were satisfied that this would be safe and a good alternative, we proceeded with all due haste to get it done.
So the initial conversations about imploding the building, when did those begin? On what day?
You know, like I say, it was always part of the equation. As to exactly when it was decided that very night, and then the work commenced immedately.
Talked about from the beginning.
Again, as a possibility that would need to be conducted, but something that we thought at the time, with the advice of our engineers, would take a while before it could be accomplished.
Last question right here.
I wanted to ask the mayor also. Mayor, you mentioned that the medical examiner was on site. I hate to ask this, but at the number of bodies that are recovered, can you talk about will there be added resources needed or extra resources coming to the scene to make sure that there's plenty of resources?
Well, first let me be clear, there's always been staff from the medical examiner's office on site. But what we did this morning is we brought the deputy medical examiner, a physician, to the site to continue the efforts on site. And again, we do not have a resource problem in our medical examiner's office, but we had the opportunity to ask Broward to assist us so we could give some relief to our staff, and that started today. It was requested last night, and they arrived today.
Thank you, folks.